Year-old girl from a cruel household, what she did next changed his life forever. In the dusty heart of Montana, where cracked earth met endless sky, lived a man named Hank Dawson, a quiet, weathered rancher clinging to the last piece of land his father had left him. Times had been hard. Droughts, debts, and loneliness gnawed at him like coyotes in the dark. With his wife long gone and his grown son in another state chasing city dreams, Hank lived in near silence, save for the lowing of his cattle and the whisper of wind through barbed wire. One scorching afternoon, while hauling feed back from town, Hank noticed someone walking barefoot along the roadside. A teenage girl with a bruised cheek, tattered clothes, and a look in her eyes that pierced deeper than any storm. Her name was Lena. She said little at first, only that she had nowhere to go. Hank offered her water, then shade, then a ride. When she winced climbing into the truck, he saw the marks on her arms. He didn't ask questions, not yet. He just took her back to his ranch and gave her a room in the old barn loft, away from prying eyes and town gossip. Over the next few days, she opened up. Lena had escaped a violent stepfather and a mother too broken to protect her. No one believed her cries for help. No one, until Hank. Hank taught her how to ride horses, mend fences, and tend to calves. She learned fast, not just because she was smart, but because she was finally somewhere she felt safe. The ranch became her refuge, but something more began to blossom in that house of dust and sweat, something neither of them expected. Lena began leaving little notes for Hank, affirmations on the fridge. She painted wildflowers on the barn wall. She baked bread from scratch using Hank's late wife's forgotten recipe, and for the first time in years, the ranch smelled like home. One night, Hank found her in the field, crying silently under the stars. "I never thought I'd be anything more than broken," she whispered. "But you didn't fix me, Hank. You just gave me a place where I could start." The next morning, she surprised him again by enrolling herself in the local community college and applying for a grant using his address. "I want to be a vet," she said, smiling shyly. "I want to help animals, like the way you helped me." Years passed. Lena graduated with honors, becoming the first in her family to earn a degree. She opened a veterinary clinic in town, specializing in farm animals. And every week without fail, she'd return to the ranch to check on Hank, to fix his old truck, or just to sit quietly and drink coffee on the porch. When reporters came to cover her grand opening, they asked her who had inspired her journey. Lena simply turned to the old man beside her, placed a hand on his calloused one, and said, "He saved me when I had nothing. But more than that, he believed in me, and that changed everything." Hank never thought he'd find purpose again, but in rescuing Lena, he found something he didn't even know he was missing. A daughter in spirit and a second chance at life. Would you like a YouTube-sized thumbnail image to match this story? Years later, she returned and saved his ranch. Bill Thorne had always been a man of grit, a rancher through and through. But after losing his wife to cancer and nearly losing his ranch to mounting debt, the fight had gone out of him. He worked sunup to sundown just to keep the bank from knocking on his door. Hope, it seemed, had long since left the prairie. That changed one rainy evening. Bill was driving his truck back from town when he saw a figure curled up at the edge of the road, soaked, shivering, and barely conscious. He pulled over and wrapped the girl in his coat. Her name was Maya. She was 18 and had fled a violent home. Her father, a man feared in town but protected by money and silence, had broken her spirit. She had no place to go. Something in her eyes reminded Bill of his late daughter. He brought her to the ranch, gave her food, and let her sleep in the spare room. Townsfolk whispered, "Why was an old widower housing a runaway girl?" But Bill didn't care. He'd seen enough cruelty in the world. He wasn't going to add to it. At first, Maya barely spoke, but the horses calmed her. The rhythm of life on the ranch, the animals, the fresh air, the quiet, started to heal her. Then one morning, Bill caught her reading through his old ranch books, making notes, calculating feed ratios and vet costs. "You understand all this?" he asked. "I think I do," she said. "I want to learn. I want to help." And she did. Maya worked harder than anyone Bill had ever seen. She fixed fences, nursed sick calves, and even designed a small irrigation system using scraps from the barn. The ranch started to thrive again. But what neither of them knew was that Maya was planning something more. 3 years later, Bill received a letter. It was from the USDA. The ranch had been awarded a grant, $50,000, under a new youth-led agricultural innovation program. Maya had secretly applied, using her notes, the systems she'd developed, and a heartfelt essay about the man who saved her. When the media came to cover the story, Maya stood beside Bill and said into the cameras, "He gave me shelter when no one else would. Now it's my turn to give back." That grant saved the ranch. But more than money, Maya gave Bill something he thought he'd never feel again: pride, purpose, and family. Bill, the man who thought he'd lost everything, found out life still had one miracle left for him. Her name was Maya. Would you like me to write another version? Or shall I create a YouTube-sized thumbnail image for this one? Brink. The once proud owner of Morgan Ranch had lost almost everything. His cattle herd had dwindled after a harsh winter, and a wildfire had scorched the back pasture, leaving him deep in debt. His neighbors had moved away, the bank was circling, and Clay was growing old and tired. Then one evening, as he was repairing a busted fence post near the edge of his property, he heard a faint cry in the wind. At first, he thought it was a calf caught in the brush, but as he got closer, he saw a figure crouched behind a log. It was a girl. She was dirty, shaking, barefoot, and looked like she hadn't eaten in days. Her name, she whispered, was Emma. She had escaped from an abusive stepfather who'd locked her in a basement when she turned 18, saying she was his property now. She ran the first chance she got, through woods and roads, finally collapsing near Clay's land. Clay didn't hesitate. He wrapped her in his old flannel jacket, gave her stew and a bed in the guest room, and didn't ask questions she wasn't ready to answer. Days turned into weeks. Emma helped around the house, cleaned up the tool shed, and mended old clothes. She didn't speak much, but her eyes began to soften. One morning, Clay found her in the barn fixing his generator with a YouTube video playing on a cracked phone. "You any good with machines?" he asked. "I used to fix everything at home. Door locks, plumbing, wiring. Kept me busy, kept me sane." That week, she repaired his broken tractor, a job the mechanic quoted over $1,000 for. Clay started calling her his angel in boots. But Emma wasn't done. She began teaching herself ranching management through online courses at night. She applied for aid, wrote grants under Clay's name, and digitized his old paper logs. One day, she shyly handed Clay a printed binder titled Morgan Ranch Revival Plan. He blinked. Youth initiative, and a modest herd funded by a startup loan Emma secured. Local schools started visiting for tours. A nearby co-op signed on to buy beef and eggs. One evening, standing under the stars, Clay turned to Emma. "I thought I was just helping a lost girl, but turns out you were the one saving me." Emma smiled. "We saved you."